and welcome to Who Really Cares. My name is Nikki and I'm your host on this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Carers in Bedfordshire, a charity based in Bedfordshire in the UK, and we support unpaid carers. And a carer is anybody who looks after somebody who could not manage without them. So whether that's a sibling or a parent or a child, you're all carers. And across Bedfordshire, it's estimated that there are 55,000 unpaid carers, and we have just over 12 and a half of them, nearly 13,000 registered with us. So that's a lot of carers still out there that aren't accessing support. Now, this podcast is one of our services, as well as a source of entertainment. We're using it to share stories and get insight on what it's like to be a carer. We've listened so far to some young adult carers, some former carers. We've got some benefits advice. And today we're joined by Ray. Ray is a carer for his daughter and also for his wife more recently, as she got diagnosed with dementia not that long ago. But he's been a carer for his daughter for, I guess, nearly over 35 years. Now, he's learnt a lot, and there's a lot that he can teach us. He's an amazing man. He's got such a positive energy, and I tell you, you would never believe he's as old as he is, because he's got such enormous energy, and I really loved chatting to him, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot from him too. So sit back, have a cup of tea, and enjoy meeting Ray. Ray, thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
How are you?
A little nervous.
There's no need to be nervous. We're just here for a casual chat. But, we did meet when we came to video some videos at your house, actually, which is how I met you. And you've got an amazing story. So that's why I invited you on here. So I just want to hear about that.
I think part of it is part of the nerves is trying to make sure that the story itself is not something that is me asking for some form of sympathy. It's just to document the story of my daughter and now my wife.
Yeah. Well,
journey through illness.
Yeah, well, I think that's valid. And I don't think, most carers don't want sympathy. They really don't. But I think by sharing your story, it's so helpful for other people who might be going through the same thing, because it can sometimes feel quite isolating.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about your story with your daughter first?
Yes, certainly. Well, Tricia was divorced in 1999 and she was living in Scarborough with my two grandchildren, aged at that point 3 and 7, I think it was. And she was finding it difficult to manage, and she'd started on alcohol abuse. So we were going up to Scarborough at the weekends from here, from Shefford, to give her some support. But it became blatantly obvious that our support wasn't there on a daily basis. She was under pressure with a job and looking after the boys, a couple of babysitters that didn't do a good job for her, leaving her stressed with the care situation. And eventually we decided that really we should bring her down here. So we brought her down to Shefford, moved her, sold the house. It was in joint names with her ex-husband, so there was no money, involved in that, because it had been a house, a new house, or a newly purchased house. So she was very much reliant on our support. We got her into housing association property here in Shefford, but that only lasted for a year because she had a major breakdown in 2001 or 2, and she had 3 hospital admissions um, to
And so
look after her.
sorry, was that a mental breakdown then?
Yes,
Yeah.
anxiety. At that point, it was related to her drinking
Yeah.
habits and and anxiety and stress, and she was already using words like, "I don't think it would be better off if I wasn't here."
Right.
They're scary words.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't realize that she does, but she doesn't want to realize that that would affect everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Horrible
It
for a
wouldn't,
parent to hear that.
it wouldn't be a good thing. It would be a bad thing.
Of
But
course.
that's not the way she's looking at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got through that period, and it only was about a year, 18 months, something like that, when I realized that being out on her own, looking after herself, even though it was only round the corner from us, wasn't good enough. So we brought her to live in here in our house with us.
And how old was she then?
Oh, crikey.
Well, in her 30s or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she's 51 now. So
Right.
go back
Yeah.
24 years, something like that.
So approaching 30. And
Yeah.
obviously you had to move the boys in as well then.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And this was a 3 bedroom house, so it soon became apparent that 3 bedrooms weren't enough.
Yeah.
So we then put an extension over the garage so that she could have her own room, and the boys
Mm.
could have a room apiece. She got a job here as well with the civil service to start with, but then there was a hiatus with her drinking and her mental attitude. She was not she was not managing well at work as well. So they medically discharged her, which is unusual at that age.
Mm.
Medical discharge with a very small medical pension, and she was declared. What was the term? She was disabled. She was declared as
Right.
disabled. So
Okay. So not fit for work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we move on from there, she got a job eventually with the pub in
Yeah.
Kempton, and that was nice for her because they were friends of the family. They understood Trisha's condition. She did stop drinking, and that was clearly much better for her.
So despite working in a pub, that was the time she stopped drinking.
Yes,
That's good.
strange, isn't it?
That's
Strange,
great. Yeah.
crazy. But then things got worse with her physical health.
Oh.
She had cysts on her kidney, and that went on for 18 months trying to drain these cysts. And eventually she went in for surgery to remove a cyst. And they
Right.
went to do keyhole surgery, but found that the kidney wasn't working. They thought it was, but it wasn't working. So they had to open her up and remove the kidney. It was impacted on the intestine, on the
Oh
bowel.
gosh.
So she'd been in agony for over a year on oral morph, and we were in the position then for that period of time, especially looking after the boys
Yeah. Well, and her as well,
and
though.
her and
All
her.
the
Yes,
if she's
yes,
in pain
yes.
and medical appointments, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, she she recovered from that, and I hope she started to get a little bit more stable, but it became, I think, obvious to me that there was something underlying all this, and she was eventually diagnosed as bipolar
Right.
disorder.
And
But I
so,
like the old term,
what's that?
manic depressive,
Right.
because
Right.
that describes it better to me.
Manic. Yeah.
Manic
Yeah.
depressive. She's
Right.
suddenly on a high, and then she hits the buffers, and she drops like a stone.
So diagnosed quite late, but in reality, living with that for a long time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yeah,
so, really, from well before she was, before she was even with you, she must have been coping with that on her own.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
not
So,
coping very well, but the
no.
alcohol, of course, was her medication.
Yeah, she was self-medicating
She
in
was
some.
self-medicating
Yeah.
with the alcohol to try
Yeah.
to blank out,
Yeah.
the feelings that she was having about, so low
Yeah.
self-worth and not being able to cope.
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? And so, do you think her physical, like the problems she had with her kidney, do you think that's also like a knock-on effect because of the alcohol,
No,
or is that completely
that
separate?
was completely separate. It was cysts on her
Right,
kidney that they'd spotted, and they wanted to drain the cysts, not remove the
right.
kidney, drain the
Okay.
cysts.
So,
Yeah.
but then, so obviously now you're caring for somebody who's got mental health issues as well as physical issues. So it's
Yes.
and dependence as well. So you're
Well,
kind of like triple caring, if you like.
the boys now, of course,
Mm.
are old enough to look after themselves. I've got a great grandson.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, from the youngest of the two boys, and the eldest of the two boys has got a degree in particle physics.
Wow, wow.
So,
Uh,
you know,
that's
I,
brilliant. That's brilliant. And
so
obviously, you had a massive hand in raising him. So you know,
both of them, yes, yes,
congratulations.
thank you.
You must be so proud.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what what do you wish you had have known at the start of all of this? Like, way back before way before the diagnosis, way before you even kind of brought it to live with you, I guess. What do you wish you had have known about what was going to come and how you were going to cope?
I think in hindsight, you can see the dependence on alcohol at a very early age.
Oh,
And that's
really?
that's hindsight, when
Yeah.
she was at boarding school. I was in the Air Force. She was at boarding school, and she didn't like going back to boarding school. And occasionally she would demonstrate that she didn't want to go back by getting drunk the night before she was due to go back to
Really?
boarding
Back to
school.
school.
Yeah,
And what age would she have been then?
15.
So, do you wish then that you had have sort of investigated that further? And like why is she
Uh,
well, maybe the time wasn't right. Maybe it was
no,
too people weren't talking like that, were they, back
no,
then?
no,
Yeah.
no. I didn't think it was a mental illness then.
No. No.
Um, and of course, when we took her to hospital in the early days of her being comatose because of drink, we'd take her to Bedford Hospital, and the response you got there was, "Oh, she's drunk. We can't do anything with her." So we'd sit at Bedford Hospital for hours and hours, waiting for Tricia to sober up, and then there wasn't any mental mental health facilities available. It was very, very poor in those days,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
poor. So we ended up. Trisha got fed up of being up there. She got a hangover. She wanted to come home. Dad, take me home, take me home. So we bring her
Mm.
home, and for a while, it would settle for a little
Yeah.
while, and then she'd
Yeah.
have another little episode, and we'd back in hospital. Over the period of time, that she was like this, she had 2 or 3 admissions to Wellowing, which used to be the mental health ward at
Mm.
Bedford. She had a 4-week stay up there at one point, where she needed more support than we could give
Yeah.
to try to get her stable.
And and did they not diagnose her then?
Um, I can't put my finger on when she was actually diagnosed.
Right.
I think it was later than that. So
So during this whole time when you're caring, you're kind of just not sure what your situation is then,
we
which
thought
makes
she
it
was, yeah, we thought she was an alcoholic, and that was
yeah,
it.
yeah, and that's very difficult to deal with because I mean, any sort of addiction is difficult for the family because it's so difficult to understand. But when
Mm.
you don't even realize that there's an underlying mental illness, it must have been so difficult for you.
It was. I'm just going to switch my telephone off.
That's fine. You're a very in-demand person. Yeah, so as carers, you and your wife at this time, you know, did you just feel at a loss at times just to
We felt very isolated, and it was the early days of carers in Bedford as well,
yeah,
where we were early meetings of carers in Bedford when it was first being established.
yes.
And yes, there was some assistance, some people that we knew, and you could have a conversation, about the problem, but it wasn't as it is now. A lot of facilities, a lot of help available to you.
That's good. That's really good to hear that now versus then it has improved
Oh,
for
it
you.
has it has improved. It
That's
has.
brilliant because we are also very focused that there's a lot of work to be done. You know, there's still people who aren't accessing services or don't feel that there's enough support. So it's nice to hear that you've seen the improvement because you've been caring for such a long time.
Mm.
But people
And,
who are sort of falling into caring maybe now or last year or something, that they won't have seen the improvement. They just still see the issues, of which there are, loads.
many, many.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean,
so,
we used Jenny from Carers in Bedford to steer us through the change from uh, disability living allowance
yeah,
onto the PIP.
yes, of course. Very difficult, those forms.
Those forms are shocking.
Yeah,
Shocking. There's no
yeah.
empathy with those forms at all.
Yeah, because you said you were having issues with it again
We
because you
are.
you got you
We
got
took
it the first time and then you had to reapply and then were denied. Is that right?
we took her to the first time when we were going through the transition. We got all the way through to having to go to tribunal.
Yeah,
We went to tribunal, and the tribunal um, went in her favour and gave her an enhanced rate of PIP,
yeah,
and dated it as well. Said it wouldn't be reviewed for 5 years. Now, with COVID, we went to 6 years. They extended it to DWP to 6 years, and then started the process again.
yeah.
We filled in the forms again, and this time I thought I thought that all I needed to do was to fill the forms in on behalf of Tricia to say that nothing has changed in this time.
Mm,
Tricia is still dependent on 28 tablets a day of drugs, and she can't work more than you know 2 or 3 days a week
mm,
because of her exhaustion. The medication makes her extremely tired. So she
mm.
spends most of the time now in bed, recovering from the time that she's at work. Um, we've we got a no from DWP again,
Mm.
so we're now waiting to go to tribunal. We've registered for tribunal, and it will take 6 to 12 months to get to the tribunal stage. In the
And
mean, in the meantime, who supports my daughter?
yeah, well, you, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, on whatever you have left.
yes,
But when you first told me about this the other day, the thing that stuck out for me was that as part of the process, they obviously interviewed Trisha, and it's the interview where the judgment happens
yes,
of well, she seems fine.
That's so true. Yes, in a 1 hour 22 minute interview, the s- subjective view of the interviewer was that Tricia can keep eye contact, talk lucidly, knows that she needs a drink, and therefore is cognitive to look after herself. In a nutshell,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I go
and it's
and I
like,
go back and argue. Hang on, this was one of her good days. I had to, get her out of bed in the morning. I have to get her to, you know,
yeah.
her do ablutions and get herself dressed. It's not as simple as what you see here today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the other thing, the thing that I thought was, when you're like Trisha and you are told that you're going to have to do this today, um, you know, she's just going to want to do it right. She wants to, and as part
she
of
wants
doing
to
it right,
impress. She
yes, she
wants
wants
to
to impress
impress.
because you're being interviewed. You want to impress.
Yeah,
And so she gets penalised for the efforts of being able to answer the questions.
that's right. Yeah,
Now, I met Trisha, and I have to say, it was plain to me that she needs you
mm,
and that she um, wouldn't be able to survive without you, and is not. And I spent way less time with her than the interviewer did.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I find this process so, you know, uh,
It seems to be so black and white. If you say yes to a question, I can do some cooking, then the answer to the question is yes. Not what stops you from cooking. Well,
right.
I don't want to cook when I've just done a shift at the public house that I work at. I just can't get
Yeah.
myself into gear.
Yes, but she's
And
already answered yes. So
yes,
that
so she's answered
caveat,
yes, and
yeah.
that
So
caveat
that box
is
has already been ticked and that
yeah,
caveat's done, and
yeah,
so she can cook.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that makes it
Difficult.
impossible. It makes it impossible to get the full picture.
I mean, I did write back to DWP on this last occasion and said, you have interviewed her for 1 hour and 22 minutes, or the healthcare professional did, and
Mm.
come to some subjective
Yeah.
conclusions. I look after her and have looked after her for the last 20 years. Surely my view and my experience should carry some weight in showing you that she is not capable of looking after herself in isolation.
And do you, as a carer, get asked? Do you fill in a form as well or not?
No,
So,
no.
as the full time carer of this person, you don't get asked your opinion or what the situation
Well,
is for you.
the questions that are asked can be answered by, the daily living questions that are asked
Yeah,
can be answered by yourself the and the person that is being cared for. So together we fill in the form.
yeah,
However, in this particular instance, I felt that as there was no change to Trisha's condition,
yeah.
she hadn't changed her medication, she hadn't changed her job in all these 6 years. She was still doing the same thing of going to bed 50% of the time. Why should I go through talking her through a traumatic experience by saying how poor she is at managing all these
Mm.
things
Yeah, I mean, it's not,
and
given you're
stressing
dealing
her
with
out?
somebody with mental health issues and self esteem issues and all of that, why do you want to highlight to them, that you're no good at this, you're no good at
Yeah, yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it
So
strengthens the
cruel.
fact, yeah, it strengthens the fact that she thinks she's worthless to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah,
And as her father and carer, it goes against every natural instinct that you would have
yeah,
to highlight your child's, you know, failings or
yeah,
inabilities or
yeah.
such a cruel process. And so what's the timeline? When does the tribunal sit or whatever?
Last time it was a year. This time we've been told the papers went in last early January, and it could be 6 to 9 months to a year before
Right.
the tribunal is heard. And there's no guarantee that the tribunal is going to come up with the same answer.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
I hope they
Yeah.
do.
What does it mean for you if they don't?
Oh, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. I did ask you when we chatted before, and I really liked your answer at the time, and you've kind of given it to me again, was, I asked you about your worry about the future, and you said, I never worry about anything that I can't
Change.
control. Yeah,
Yeah.
can't change.
If you
And
can't change it, worrying about it won't make you any better.
yeah, so you've just got to kind of ride the wave, I guess.
Wait and see.
Wait and see. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of carers they do worry. They wake up in the middle of the night and worry about the future and what will happen, what's going to happen if this happen, if I'm no
Oh,
longer here, or
I can understand that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And so, but you just won't allow yourself to go there because there's
No,
no point.
I try not to. I mean, you do
Yeah,
at times, but I try
yeah,
not to.
yeah. Gosh, it's such a you are stuck in such a tough situation, with seemingly quite a clear solution that would help you, but you're stuck in this holding pattern, waiting to find out. And also, we haven't talked about your wife then, because uh, um, when Trish was younger and going through a lot of her problems, you were still working full time, so your wife did a lot of the care.
She did, yes.
Yeah,
She was the main carer.
she
And
was.
since COVID,
Yeah,
uh, my wife started to show signs of disinterest, lethargy, and she's been diagnosed with dementia.
yeah. That's tough. So
Mm,
not only have you had to take on the role of carer for Trish, but now you're caring for your wife as well.
yeah,
You're what we call a sandwich carer,
really?
caring for a child and a
Hope
pair
it's,
and a
hope it's
wife.
a chicken sandwich.
Well, actually, you're not a sandwich carer because usually sandwich carers are caring for a child and a parent, but you're
Yeah.
caring for a child and a wife, so you're not
Well,
really a
well,
sandwich carer.
it's interesting that Trisha has taken on board that, yeah, her mum isn't well anymore, and she's started to take on a role that is somewhat like a carer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, she does help tremendously in the
That's
house.
that's good.
Yeah.
And do you think that helps Trisha in some way?
I do, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Her job helps her as well.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
job, her job at the pub is therapeutic to her.
Mm.
But
Uh,
because she works at the pub, that goes against her when it comes to doing these assessments. Because she's
yes.
cognitive enough to be able to go to work, but not 7 days a week, 3 days a week.
And
And she's
also,
exhausted
yeah.
afterwards. I'm
And
sorry,
also, but
I'm
if she
jumping a
also,
little bit there,
no,
but
no, 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 that's fine. But also, if she finds it therapy, if it is actually therapy, then, that's
well,
what it is.
yeah, they say with mental health,
Yeah.
don't isolate yourself.
No.
Talk to people, you know,
Yeah.
and we've always been open with the fact that Trish is bipolar, and that's helped her
Mm.
because up at the pub, all her regular customers know what she's like. She's a
Yeah.
bubbly person. She's happy. She puts on that front that she can be um, in control.
Yeah.
But
But it exhausts her doing it.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's the old swan paddling around in the water. You don't see what the legs are doing, but the swan glides across the water.
Mm.
She's a bit like that.
You're a bit like that too, though. because you because you've got this calmness about you which I admire very much because you've got all of this stuff going on in your life, but you yourself still seem very calm and I don't know, put together. How do you manage that?
I don't. Well, I don't know. We've always said between Jean and myself. Jean is. This is why I like the other term for bipolar.
Bipolar, yeah.
Jean has always. I've always said that Trisha's um, de- depression comes from her mum, and the manicness comes from me. Because I tend to go at things
Yeah.
full on.
Yeah. I've been to your house. I've seen the results.
Well, you understand that when we did the extension to the kitchen, I did all the internals
Yeah.
during COVID because I can.
Yes. So I mean, we should explain that you've got this amazing extension on your house, which you built yourself um, during COVID. And you explained to me that that was so helpful for you to have these projects because you also built the extension that Trisha ended up living in with her boys,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, so you've managed to do these projects on your house, but to facilitate extra people and all of this sort of thing. But actually, they're projects that have helped you because they
they
keep you
keep
busy.
they
Yeah,
keep me sane.
they keep you sane.
Yeah, it's
It's
something
amazing,
to focus your mind on, other than the
yeah,
difficult bits of
yeah.
that you can't control.
I mean, it's amazing, Ray, because that's what we say to carers. That they've got to look after their own well-being all of the time because their
Mm,
well-being is so important, so they can carry on caring for the person that they care for. And it's just what I admire about you is that you found your own method of well-being,
mm,
which was, extending your house, which was, a really effective way of solving a problem of space, but also keeping you sane and
yes.
looking after your own well-being, which I just think was so resourceful and so clever and so well done.
All right, that's enough. I'll
Oh,
tell you what, one telephone call that really got me was a call from carers in Bedford from Haley, and she was discussing emergency procedures. What happens if you're not there, and do you want to fill in this form that gives you some guidance of things that you need to address
yeah,
should you, be out of the picture. But it was the call that got me. The fact that somebody cared
yeah,
for me.
yeah. Well,
That, that was good.
that's so nice to hear, Ray. But the fact is that we do care, and you know, uh, the thing that we the thing that we realize, and I think a lot of people don't, is just how much carers do that goes unnoticed and unlauded and you know, just ignored to a huge extent.
Well, it's personal. It's my problem.
Yeah, but we live in a functioning society, so it's our problem.
Mm,
That's the way I think we should look at it. Is that it's our problem. Like it
mm,
takes a village to raise a child. A society is judged by how it looks after the weakest, and the people
mm.
that need help. That's how a society is judged. And that's why it should be seen as our problem, not just your problem. You're the one who's there to look after it because that's, they're your loved ones, and that makes sense. But it's such a hard job that you can't do it alone, and that's why we have people calling you.
That's great.
You know, and
I
I'm glad that that call affected you, and I'm glad that it was able to help.
It did
So
affect me. Yeah, it did.
yeah, yeah.
So can I go back now to doing my cooking
No, I've got one more question. No, I know, and this is a hard one, and you've already warned me that you probably won't know how to answer it. But what if you were in charge? If we elected you at this election as head of carer services of the government, what would you do to make life better for you and other people in your situation?
That's such a difficult question. Certainly from the early days of not having anybody to turn to, it's making sure that people understand that places like Carers in Bedford, they have an ability to be able to point you in the right direction. Just, you need somebody to listen to you.
Yeah.
And if you've got a problem and they can solve it or give you a steer, that's a bonus.
Yeah. I have to say that answer is probably the only universal answer that I get. In terms of, because carers are so different. They're all ages, all genders, all nationalities. But the one thing that they all agree on is that it's so good to have somebody who just listens to you.
Yeah.
You know. And that's the thing I get told again and again. It's just nice to have somebody to listen. So
we went to Dementia all sorts group yesterday.
Oh, did you?
My wife, yes, just to see what it was like.
Yes.
I wanted to get Jean out of the house, and it was interesting.
Yeah. Will you go again?
Yes. But
that's great.
We learnt about the Herbert Protocol.
Yes. Yeah.
And we learnt about the assistance that the Red Cross is able to provide if asked. And I think there again, the answer that came out of the meeting was you have to ask to be able to, if you know that the British Red Cross do help in certain circumstances, ask the question of them and find out if they can help you, because all the circumstances are different. You just don't know what you need.
Well, this is it. And I'm really pleased you said that though as well. Not only that you were able to find a service that you might use, but that you were able to find it via one of our groups, because so often carers, I think that the groups are just, it's just a social group. I don't need any more friends. I don't really want to. I feel a bit intimidated by, all of these barriers that they put up. But actually, if you go along, it's not what you think it is. It can be so much more.
Yeah. It's with everything else, you take out of it what's good for you.
Yes, exactly. Well, you're an amazing carer, really, because you've accessed most of our services, I think. We've been through the list, and I think you've used all of them. No, not quite all of them.
May I explain something to you?
Yes.
My best word in the English language is free.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah, I relate.
Yes, and anything that's free, I think, is great.
Yeah.
And carers in Bedford have been really good to us over the years.
Yeah. Good. Well, it wasn't free because I made you come on my podcast. There you go.
Yeah. You mean I'm getting paid?
No. No.
What a shame.
Ray, thank you so much for talking to me today. I think your experience has been so broad and you've been at it for such a long time and you've learned so much, and so thank you for sharing that with us today.
Been a pleasure.
Now you may go back to your regular duties, whatever they are.
I'll go and do some Dosset boxes.
Yeah.
And then I'll get lunch.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Nikki.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it, Ray. What an amazing man. I'm sure you'll agree. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and recommend it to a friend, especially if you think that friend may be an unpaid carer that isn't aware of our services and isn't aware of us. And make sure you like and subscribe, because we do have some really great episodes coming up as well. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you next time on Who Really Cares.